Oh yeah, I forgot. I didn't have it on preview mode. Hey everybody, we're live. You just saw that me being confused for 5 seconds before I realized that. And this is Tony Vicinda from Plus One EXP. We're a weird little brand that multi-classes in tabletop game design, beard and skincare alchemy, and the Bardic College of Content Creation. We are here today for another episode of Prestige Class. It's just our second episode, but this is a show where we sit down and we talk to a designer about a project they're currently working on, but also their design process, not just for that project, but overall. Today I am joined by Ian Yusem. Ian, I'm super excited to have you here. I'm actually very excited about your project. I hope you know that it was one of our top 10 most anticipated projects for Zine Quest. There are a number of things that went into that. One, I love Mothership. I love the art that you brought forward to this campaign, but mostly I was enthralled by a concept, and I think what I said in the review was the concept of a funnel adventure for Mothership seems like an obvious thing, but no one's ever, like, I've never heard anybody think of it before, which is a very unique type of genius when you can take an idea that seems like it should be obvious to everybody and then actually make it an extant thing. So I'm super excited to hear a little bit more about how you ended up creating that, ask you questions, and find out more about your design process. But before we do that, just tell people a little bit about who you are and about the Drain.
Sure. So I'm Ian Yusem. I started playing Mothership. I was introduced to it by a friend a little over a year ago. I immediately fell in love. I've been playing and running as much of it as I could ever since. And then this year I started publishing and writing bits of Mothership content and adventures here and there. It all started out when I published a blog post about an adventure idea I had called Moonbase Blues, and then a Mothership Discord community member, Warren, reached out to me on Discord and showed me this beautiful one-page spread that he laid out of my adventure, totally unprompted, and it was the most amazing thing anyone had ever done. And I was so excited. So we got together and we published it, and I've been writing and publishing little things ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I love how quickly that happened. Like, you went from, I started playing this, I love it, to here's the type of adventure I want, to somebody, and this is what I love, like, this is a large part of why we do what we do, a little bit of encouragement from the community to say, we took this idea you had and we tried to make something beautiful around that because we love it so much. That kind of collaborative work is the kind of stuff I love to see happening in the RPG community. And so I love that's a part of the story. So this is the first time you've ever designed an adventure, was kind of entering into Mothership. Had you done stuff before that? I know you've done stuff since, but anything before that point?
Yeah, I've been running games for years, but nothing I'd published. And you had asked how I came up with the idea for the Drain. That one I actually can't take credit for at all, because it came out from just a bunch of memeing and joking on the Mothership Discord about running funnels. And I just picked that up and ran with it. And I guess no one else decided to. They just left that that idea on the table. I'm just the one who did it.
Yeah.
So I can't claim full credit.
No, but I still love it. I still love that you, like, even if it is just picking it up and running with it, that, like I said, I was talking to somebody the other day about the fact that lots of times people will be in the idea and everybody's room and everybody's throwing out ideas. And when that's happening, sometimes people will feel really attached to it. Other people won't. Other people want to do something. Other people don't. Picking it up and taking it and just checking with the room and saying, hey, like, I did something with this. Like, here, it came from a conversation we all had, is 100% what people should be doing. And I think a lot of people hesitate to do that. So I love it. So tell us, let's just start out with Lynn, a little bit more about Moonbase Blues. I know it's up right now. You actually link it out on your campaign. Tell us what Moonbase Blues was and kind of what went into that kind of first that first draft of what eventually became the funnel concept for Mothership?
So Moonbase Blues is the old thing that I
Yeah,
made. The Drain is the oh okay.
correct.
So yeah. So Moonbase, that one all started on another Discord server where someone had posted this creepy YouTube video and said someone should make a Mothership adventure of this. I can't remember the name of it. But everyone keeps commenting and saying, "Oh, this reminds me of this thing." Anyway, so I just thought a little bit about it. The concept that I got from the prompt was basically just there is a meteor, don't look at it. So I tried to take that and run with it, and I came up with some time-based mechanics that it's basically the meteor is circling around the moon, the moon base where everyone is, and over time things get worse and worse until suddenly the meteor is overhead and everyone is being exposed to its corrupting light, and that's bad. The funnel concept, like I said, just came from people joking around. I had played DCC a few times before. I'd played in, I think, one funnel. I thought it was really cool. So I just sort of whipped up a really quick idea of just a horrible space battlefield. Like, what if you ran like a chain gang of prison soldiers through a space battlefield? And that would be the funnel. So that's where it started. The chain gang morphed into explosive collars that everyone's wearing. So yeah, and then eventually it ended up as the Drain, which is a adventure where each player is going to play a handful of PCs in the classic funnel style, and you'll grab some not particularly useful gear and try to run out into the battlefield and scavenge what you can. And so you're running these characters through a massive colony ship or generation ship that is like a big rotating cylinder that creates gravity just by spinning. So the ground wraps around up on top of you, and so you can sort of see the entire battlefield around you from any point. And so you're just running through, and there's horrible monsters, and you're moving from trench to trench through minefields and rifts in the hull where vacuum is pulling people out into space. And yeah, that's the adventure pretty much.
Yeah. I love it. Now, did you have to do much modification to the characters in order to make that fit, or did you find Mothership just kind of really easily ported over to a funnel concept? Like, what's the level 0 equivalent of a Mothership?
Yeah, so I did change it a little bit. There are some alternative character creation rules in my zine. The characters are a little weaker. They succumb to stress a little more since funnel is meant to be like a one shot. It's even a little more likely that you'll panic. And then I just had I added a few alternative rules and sort of suggestions just for streamlining play for that many characters. But mostly it's just Mothership. I didn't really have to change it too much.
Yeah. I said it seems like a great concept. I love the fact that it came out of a community conversation, and I love obviously that you picked it up and ran with it. By the way, right now, if you're just joining us, this is an episode of Prestige Class. It's where we sit down with the creator whose work we are excited about, talk to them about the design process. Today, we're talking with Ian Yusem about The Drain, which is currently live on Kickstarter. There's a modified short link right below Ian that'll take you right to the campaign if you have it. And I will point out that right now, He is $5 under $10,000 mark, which is a huge deal for any creator. He's at $9,995. Would love if somebody would just go increase your pledge $5. It's great. Let's put him over 10K while we're live here on stream. But also, if you have questions about the drain, about Ian's design process, any of that kind of stuff, please just go ahead and drop those in the chat, and I'll ask them to Ian also too. I know right now mostly it's just tons of love. Like cheers to the drain. Is a lot of what we're seeing in the chat from Emily, from Adam, from Eric, from a lot of people who are just super excited to support the project and have been excited about it. Josh says it was his far and away most anticipated Zine Quest project, and it's a great setup for single session play. But it wants to know if it's set up more for single session play, or is it really designed to take multiple sessions? Like, is this a one session like funnel campaign, or is this a, hey, you may play this over the course of a numerous kind of mini campaign to get your characters set?
So I have run it as both. I think it's a lot of that is going to come down to just how you pace the game. I think it's perfect for a one shot. I ran it in 2 hours once just to see how tight I could get it. But you could also probably run it over 2 to 3 like 3-hour sessions if you just want to take things slowly. Definitely it is designed to spark a campaign. Funnels are amazing introductory adventures, and they're really perfect for introducing someone to this sort of high lethality style of play. If you're someone coming to Mothership from something like the current edition, 5th edition D&D, where your characters are a little more resilient, you get a little more attached to them, a funnel is a good way to lose a bunch of characters, experience character death in a lower risk environment.
Which I need to do more funnel campaigns, because even after decades of playing games, I have a really hard time. I don't have a hard time with the concept of character death. Like, I think characters giving up their life at the right moment in a narrative, or because of the roll of the dice and using their time out, is great. But I still am just really hesitant to do it. And it even keeps me from playing funnel systems. I love DCC, but rather than just doing dumb things with my characters because I know it'll advance the plot, I oftentimes keep kind of a preservation mindset, even though I really should just be like, look, I'm just trying to have one character at the end of this. It's fine. Like 3 or 4 of these guys can die, and I'll just keep on going. As somebody who's run it, and was that kind of the focus, do you have any advice maybe for people who are running the games? Because even when you're playing other people's games, you are doing some very low level design work, like we talked about. Like when you're GMing, you're creating and crafting, also too using the tools given to you. How do you coax people kind of into that place where they're comfortable or more aware of death? And is there certain ways that's just built in to your design process also?
Yeah. From the GMing side, I would say character death in a funnel is sort of inevitable. So once it happens, make sure you make each death just really cool. Like the way you narrate it and you put the spotlight on that, and then sort of make sure you make that death feel meaningful, like that sacrifice have that accomplish something. Like, even if it's just, well, we wandered into a minefield and the first person who got blown up has warned us that we're in a minefield now, so we have one more advantage that way. On the design side, I think just the nature of the funnel kind of does that work for you. You have all these characters, they're not super fleshed out, they have maybe like a couple interesting items and details. You don't really have the time to work out a whole bunch of character backstories and get super attached to them. You're just, a good funnel just sort of puts you into the action. Here are some, maybe they have a name, maybe they don't, and just sort of gets you going, and the action should flow quickly enough that you're not worried about losing 1 or 2 here and there.
That's awesome. Eris Shrugged wants to know, what's the core of the horror the drain is trying to evoke? Like, what's like, as with Mothership, fear and horror and panic being such a huge part, what are some of the core pieces you're trying to evoke with the drain?
It's definitely just sort of raw battle horror in the sense of like it's very World War I influenced. There are just threats everywhere. You start out in the trenches, and there's bullets flying overhead. There's poison gas, and it is very much a gauntlet to even make it out of the first area. The other flavor of horror in there is sort of like Silent Hill, Resident Evil inspired, like weird occult survival horror. Um, so there's the sort of story and the context for the funnel is the residents of this colony ship where the funnel takes place, their crops were dying, so they created the circumstances of this whole battlefield, this whole battle, as an occult ritual. And so there's sort of evidence of that weird cultness around. And then there's the monstrous byproducts of the dystopian future bioengineering stuff. So, there's, let's take a horse and make it into something more and horrible. Let's have a barn out there that's just sort of ominous. And of course, if you go in, there's some horrible, terrible, nightmarish things in there. So it's one part World War one part occult horror.
Yeah. And I thought that was a really interesting piece, especially knowing like a lot of times funnel adventures come from DCC, which oftentimes plays kind of heavily on the occult and kind of fantasy aspects. Seeing that merge into some of your design, I thought was a kind of a genius maneuver to say, this might attract people from DCC to try and Mothership for the first time, or vice versa. Tell me a little bit about kind of introducing some of that occult concept into what is kind of typically a hard sci-fi universe. There are plenty of cults and cultish things in Mothership, so I don't want to imply that that's not already a part of the world. But what was that like to kind of write some of that stuff in to the story?
Yeah. So one thing that I've always been interested in exploring I wouldn't say that Mothership has a universe or a defined setting, but just sort of the collection of sort of aesthetics that Mothership tends to gravitate towards, and its sort of brand of science fiction. I really like the idea of where religion might go in the future, and what I like the idea of is sort of post-canon religion. So it's more of a oral tradition. People are splintering into these little insular pockets of things. So something that might have started as a mainstream religion is now looks very different and weird. And I think that sort of communicates the like interesting insular little cultural pockets that you might find in a setting like Mothership, where someone just has lived their entire life on one ship or on one station with 100 other people, and like sort of where does that culture develop?
Like I said, it's like I said, it's just such a beautiful thing. Let's talk a little bit about the art. Actually, kind of as you bring that up, as somebody who is Catholic, one of the first things that I saw when I saw the original art, like we track our liturgical calendar like through this big circular wheel thing that has some very like interesting similarity feels between the kind of the key image for the drain, these wheels within wheels concept of the ship. Tell us a little bit about that image and how that evolved.
So that evolved through me just thinking, okay, well, this is the physicality of the space. How does one map it? I wanted to have something like a hex crawl where there were concrete, discrete locations where I could put a point of interest in there and just give wardens a tool to navigate the space. So I made little like paper craft little cones and started drawing on them and seeing like what sort of a thing I could do to approximate a hex crawl. And then the concentric circles thing sort of seemed the most natural fit. Later, when talking to Christian Kessler, the designer who laid out, who's laying out the zine, he likened the appearance to the circles of hell in Dante's Inferno, which is something that we then went back into the text and tried to sort of evoke a little more and draw more parallels there.
Yeah, I think it's an absolutely stunning image. I also we haven't yet actually. Let me pull it up real quick. You chose to do a video. I always jokingly say like my Zine Quest project last year was probably one of the most overproduced Zine Quest projects ever. This year, tons of people came in with excellently produced Kickstarter projects for Zine Quest. More than just the image at the top, couple pieces of art, one page of layout and text, which is what we saw a lot of for the first two Zine Quests overwhelmingly, because it's a small budget project for most people. You did a fully produced video that's absolutely amazing. I want to give people a little taste of it. I don't know that we'll watch the whole thing, but I just want to give people a sense of some of what you've done with that, because it's an absolutely excellent video. And I should actually make sure we're on it as I... One of the things I think I said, like this is an excellent use of a lot of different tools and resources to produce a really solid video.
Yeah,
like it doesn't do a whole lot more than establish feel, but it does it so perfectly, and it does it with I mean, it looks like mostly stock footage, some overlays, and then some 3D rendering of a few different elements, which, you know, maybe it's more than that. So I'd love to hear from you.
It is actually more than that. So the video, we went kind of crazy with the video, as you can see. So that all credit goes to my close friend Meredith Silver, who made the video. She also made the video for another Mothership Kickstarter, that Zine Quest Kickstarter that just went live today, called The Desert Moon of Karth.
We played The Desert Moon of Karth 2 weeks ago on stream. We've got a review dropping for it next week, and so that's awesome. I haven't seen the video for that yet. So, but is that Junk Golem? By the
Junk
way,
Golem, yes.
So Junk Golem did a phenomenal job with that video. So yeah, tell me a little bit more about. So tell me about the choice to make a video rather than just do an image or something else like that. And then tell me a little bit more about the development process for that.
So that all started where I was basically, you know, I tried to plan this Kickstarter really well, a lot in advance, and Meredith Junk Golem is one of my close friends, and so we have, you know, a group chat with our friends, and I was just spitballing ideas. I was like, well, what could we do a video? Do we know anyone who does a video? Meredith says, yeah, I could do it. So then we got to talking, and we came up with this really ambitious, you know, this trailer. The idea for this trailer is really ambitious and stupid and wonderful. And so we just couldn't say no once we had the idea. And so she ran with it. We started with the trailers for the John Carpenter movie Dark Star, and the original trailer for Alien as sort of a aesthetic inspiration. And we ran from there. So everything you see in that video, Meredith either made or filmed herself. There's no stock footage.
That's awesome. And Meredith, if you have anything you want to add, since I know you are watching, feel free to go ahead and type it in the chat. We will make sure it makes it onto the stream.
Yeah, and she made the ships you see. Those are all models that she like real physical models that she made. And they're just amazing. And then of course, doing the sound for the video, which I think is also uh, pretty fantastic, is another one of my close friends, Eric K. Hill.
Who Meredith made sure very quickly was attributed in the chat also.
Right. Yeah. Credit where credit is due. Also, shout out to Eric's Kickstarter, which went live today. Endless Banquets, which is a troika zine.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean the video, we wanted to just I do a thing where I look at a lot of Kickstarters, particularly a lot of RPG gaming Kickstarters, partially for fun, partially just to find things to back. And I've sort of developed what I think is a good practice, what's a bad practice, and I tend to prefer videos that are just selling the atmosphere, and that's what we tried to do here. I mean, the video we made communicates something about the story, but it more suggests than it really explains anything. It probably raises more questions than it answers. But that's what we wanted. You know, we wanted something just weird and eye-catching and cool.
In all honesty, that is, I'll say this, and I think I would hope you would agree. I mean, I want to talk a little bit about Kickstarter project development because you actually, I think, having read a lot of the stuff you've put out, I usually 100% agree with your insight. Or like, I think one time I caveated like, hey, if this is the order things are supposed to appear in, I would put them down lower. But I also think this is 100% all the things I want to see in a Kickstarter. You do an excellent job of it. And I think the number one thing you want from your video is not to explain your project, which is what most people try to do. It's to get people excited about your project, but mostly to want to scroll down to the next thing. Like everything on a Kickstarter should make people want to find out more about what is right below that until they're ready to hit back on the campaign. And so Bifford just joined. We're talking with Ian Yusem about the Drain, which is a Mothership module. It was one of our most anticipated projects from Zine Quest 3, and we're just talking about the design process that went into that. You can find it at the link underneath him. That short link right there will take you right to the campaign. And I don't know, have you guys put it over $10,000 yet? Because we would love that. Let me refresh the page and let's find out. Nope, we're still at 9,995, guys. Come on, let's see it. Let's see if we can get, even if you've already backed, just go increase it over 5 so we can all yell and scream really loud over there when we go live. So it's sitting right underneath that $10,000 level. This was one of our most anticipated games. It brings the funnel adventure concept into the Mothership world in a really phenomenal, absolutely beautiful package. We actually backed at the $80 level to get the poster, to get that big image. It's going to be a double-sided poster that's going to add content to it. So Meredith wants us to know that also the hardest part with making the inside the funnel shots. Meredith had to drive an hour and trudge through a huge field for 20 minutes to find a site that worked for the field that she wanted. But she's so happy with the end result, and it was totally worth it. I agree. I think this is such a solid video. So that's, I just shared what I'm looking for in a video. I know you kind of had said some of the things like you want to raise those questions. What if you had advice to give people about making a video for a Kickstarter, even for a small project? What would maybe be some of your advice about that and other things that people should consider, especially for small projects like a Zine Quest project?
Yeah, so I mean, plenty of projects do great with no video. I don't think that anyone should have too much anxiety about making a video. And I would say that a bad video, like a boring video, is worse than no video. A lot of people will just, sit down and record themselves talking and sort of explaining what their campaign is. I think you're better off not doing something like that and just letting people scroll down and read about your campaign. So if you want to do a video, if you're willing to put in the effort to learn, video editing software, or you already do, or someone who does, I would encourage you to make a very simple video taking art that you already have for your campaign and just making some motion graphics. just do like a little parallax effect, scrolling around your art, have some like catchy, catchphrases, taglines come up on screen. That's really all you need to do, and it can be super short. I saw a video for a campaign this Kickstarter, I think it was Castaway or something like that, and it was just like stock footage of a campfire that panned up to the title, and it was like 20 seconds long, and that's all you need. You don't need something super crazy or involved.
The chat is also freaking out right now because you are at $10,005.
Oh, there we go.
I'm gonna potentially guess. I don't know if it was Gene. Gene does back some projects out there. If you're out there watching right now and you're in the chat, let us know who put him over. I love being backer number one, but I'd way rather be backer. I put you over a major goal, whether that's funding, whether that's a stretch goal, whether that's a major mark. So whoever backed, if you're out there watching, thank you so much for backing. I love this project. I backed it. I think when you back those milestone things, it's actually some of the best feeling of contributing to a creator. But yeah, everybody's out there freaking out. So congrats on hitting that 10K mark, which I know isn't a stretch goal, but it's just a super exciting like
yeah, for sure.
To hit. And so because you have a 12K stretch goal coming up. I
do.
But yeah, congratulations, man.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that feels really good. It was so I'm among my friends, I'm notoriously pessimistic. And they were talking to me like right before I launched, and they're like asking me how well I think I would do. And I'm like, oh, might get like maybe 150% overfunded, people like Mothership, I don't know. And then Meredith predicted I would get $10,600 something. And I, said, get out of here. That's impossible. There's nothing. It couldn't reach anywhere near that high. And of course,
Meredith said $10,649 to be precise.
Yeah. So yeah, it's, I don't know what to say. It's incredibly overwhelming. I don't really understand exactly how all this happened, but,
well, one of the things I've been talking about a lot, it's part of it's understanding the system and part of it's craft. Like there are people who are out there who are creators who you can tell really love and care about their project. And then you can see people who are just like putting out their next thing or trying to get something done. And that's not to denigrate any other projects, but I've named the work that Jack from Mousehole Press does with Artifact, with Orbital, with Bucket of Bolts that's live right now. The fact that they're talking about like the paper that they use, right? Like shows you the craft that goes into that. For you, when I looked at your campaign, for me, a lot of the craft was it's the visual, it's the layout, it's the concept, but it's also like it's the craft of a well-run Kickstarter. Like when I look at people's levels, there are certain things I want to see and certain like price points that show me that somebody understands the economy they're dealing with. And that's one of the things that you did. You had a couple of very approachable levels, the digital, the physical, and then you bumped up to like an $80 pretty premium level, and then you had a higher level also too. I think more creators need to look at what's a thing I would love to do with this project, and then put out there that is an option if people are interested in it, and charge appropriately. And so that, and like I said, the whole campaign itself was well put together. So somebody was like very excited you were 10K, but then they looked and they saw it was only 7,289, and then they realized that they were seeing it in British pounds. So that's next step. 10,000 British pounds is the next step. And so Junk Golem says, let me brag real quick the real star here for a moment. Ian is one of the most thoughtful, skilled, and creative RPG creators working right now. This adventure rocks and is going to be the first of many successes for him. Ian's never going to come on this again because I don't know that he's comfortable with the amount of love he's getting right now. But you should be. Like I said, there's a reason this was, even from just the splash image in the presentation and having read like one of your articles, this was on my most anticipated list. And I'm so thrilled for watching you just absolutely be successful. And I was really thrilled when you reached out and said, hey, you said if I wanted to come on sometime I could. I'm absolutely thrilled that you did. But what do you look? You said you looked at a lot of Kickstarter campaigns. We've mentioned a couple times you've written some articles. So video, if you can't do a good video, don't do a boring video. 100% agree. 30-second sting flavor videos are great. 90-second sting flavor videos are great. Anything longer than 2 minutes for me, it's like break that into multiple videos somewhere else in your campaign. What are some of the other things you're looking for in a Kickstarter campaign, and how did you build those into the drain?
Another big thing is having some graphics and some art to break up your text. If I see a campaign and it's all text, it's gets kind of hard to parse. It doesn't look like it. You want to look like you put some effort into it and some thought, and having just, if all you're going to do is just have your headers be images with a nice font, that is a huge difference. Art is another big thing. I want to see, and I like to show in my own stuff art that I've already had commissioned. I realize that's not accessible to everyone, to put money up front. Although depending on the artist, you might be able to work out a deal where you can pay them once your Kickstarter funds. And the thing that to me is probably the most important, which I think I see the least, is a full layout spread with readable text. I really I love art. I love design. That's all great. But for me personally, I want to be able to read what this, at least just a small sample of how this is going to, your actual project will read. And I want to see if there's, strong, competent layout work on it.
Yeah.
I think, like I said, I think that's a pretty important thing that I see not as much as I'd love to.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of also the things that all, like, sometimes people will just do a ton of layout pages, and I'm like, hey, I want to see layout pages, but I want to see like 4 or 5 that I can read, so I know what this is about and know what I'm getting. But if I have to scroll past like 10 pages of layout, that I'm no longer interested in that. I think you did a killer job. Let's talk about stretch goals for a minute. You've unlocked a number. You started with just the funded level comms transmission, which is some battlefield audio transmission that the players can kind of discover when they tune into local comms bands, the pamphlet adventure, the postcard will and testament, the offset printing kind of breakpoint for physical backers, which is huge. Like, so you started out with a digital level, like this is a digital project that then became physical, correct?
No, it was I was going to print it through not I'm blanking on the words. It was going to be printed. It was going to be printed, but no, it was going to be a mix and print run.
A mix and print run.
But it was going to be, oh God, I'm just blanking on the phrases that I need. It was going to be printed on digital printers, not a roller, not a traditional thing. So, there's a certain breakpoint at which it becomes cost effective to do a traditional lithographic. It's actually roller translated onto the page rather than like the sort of digital printer you'd have at home.
Right.
But Mixam has a nice digital printer for their digital runs, but it's even a little bit nicer to do the offset.
Yeah. The offset, you also like for me the biggest thing on the full offset is like texture, like the texture and the look are just a little bit more they don't feel as magazine-ish, or I mean they feel like better. It's got a better feel and look to it. So I love that you had that as just a name stretch goal. And then we've got the funnel character sheets after that, which I think is huge for this type of piece. You also partnered with Evelyn on that, who I love. And then you've got the $1,200 stretch goal looming ahead. That's the ship combat pamphlet. So you've got a few more going. Any advice out there for first-time creators on stretch goals? Like, this is actually this is a very clear but also pretty aggressive stretch goal thing for a first run. With the amount of work you put into figuring it out, I've no doubt you're going to be able to do it. I love that you mixed in some digital audio elements. I love that you did some extra like simple content, a lot of stuff that I love seeing. I love naming that offset piece. What would your advice be to creators who are looking at stretch goals first time out of the gate?
Sure. Like as a consumer, I really like stretch goals. So that influenced my decision to do some. I can't give you market research data showing why stretch goals is better or worse. My gut tells me they're good to have just because I like them, and they've definitely contributed to me wanting to back a campaign more. The main thing is to try to focus on digital stretch goals if you're going to do them. And if you want to plan a physical stretch goal, make sure you really, really, really plan that out, and make sure you know exactly how that's going to impact, your shipping dates, like the actual physical like package you're going to be shipping things in. If like the weight and the shape of this new thing you're going to add is going to totally throw off like whether you can mail things in a folder or whatever. So I'm doing one other than my offset printing run, which is a physical upgrade. I have a single physical stretch goal, which is a postcard, which is I think going to be really cool, but it's also extremely easy to make and logistically uncomplicated. I can just throw that in an envelope with a zine, and that doesn't change how I'm fulfilling anything. Another big thing is if you're doing stretch goals, try to bring people who aren't already working on your project on to do stretch goals, who have something of a name for themselves that can elevate your project. And you want to try and I actually didn't do a very good job of this because I think I announced Dirk's stretch goal like the day after my campaign was live. I was hoping to save those announcements for the middle of my campaign when things were slowing down.
Right.
But you want to make those be like cool new announcements you can throw out in the middle of your campaign when things have slowed down that will draw new people to your campaign or get people who have already seen your campaign to reconsider backing if they weren't planning to. So yeah, I have Dirk Leachty. I'm probably butchering that horribly, which is very much a crime because I've met the man in real life, who is one of my favorite, if not my favorite artists working in RPGs. He made all the beautiful character portraits in Troika, illustrated Silent Titans and a bunch of other great stuff. And he is doing art for the postcards, awesome. Which is a goal we've hit. And then Evelyn Moreau, who is another amazing RPG artist, one of my favorites. She has a Zine Quest campaign that I need to remind myself real quick what the name of it is.
That's fine. Yeah, because I do too, because I want to feature it today.
But I'm not sure when that one's going live either, but it is amazing. Okay, it's called Where the Wheat Grows Tall.
That's right.
And that is not yet live, but you should absolutely back it. So Evelyn is going to do character art for every single of the 20 character sheet cards that we're putting that we've now hit as a stretch goal. So they're going to be 4 to a page, so you can print them out at home and distribute them among your players to stock your funnel. And we are making 20, which is a little over the 10 to 15 total number of characters you would need to run the funnel, just so players can have fun, like picking out their roster and like, because I think that Evelyn's art will add a lot of immediate, easily to get off the ground flavor to a character that otherwise you're not thinking too much about, but it's like, oh, this character looks like this, that tells me a little bit about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Let's we've got some questions from a few people, and then I want to talk about kind of what people can expect coming up. Again, we're talking with Ian Yusem, who has the Drain live on Kickstarter right now. You can go to the short link right below his picture to find out more about that. So a couple questions we've had from the chat. What did you find the hardest part about writing for a horror narrative? I know we talked about running it. What was the hardest thing to make sure you wrote into the adventure as far as the horror goes?
The actual writing, to me, it was, in this case, horror comes fairly naturally to me. I love horror. I'm constantly writing down ideas for Mothership. I think the thing that I struggled with a little bit was finding pockets of calm to add into the adventure, which is, the sort of the opposite of the question. I'm kind of cheating here, but I think you need to space out the horror a little bit with horror RPGs in general, and Mothership specifically, with interludes. So I tried to have a couple areas on the map that were a little slower, where you could even find some respite and some calm, to break up the moments of intense action and violence and horror.
Yeah, no, and I know I think that's a very valid answering of that question. But it's about what was hard about writing it, and it's actually even one of my questions because it's this giant battlefield, and you compared it to World War I, and there's this sense of like everywhere is dangerous in some way, shape, or form, right? Even when you're in a secure place, there's a sense of danger, and I just think that's a really phenomenal piece as far as the pacing goes. Let's see. Another question was why Mothership? I think the other question for me on top of that, why Mothership? Then what other systems are you interested in creating content for?
Mothership, I just love it so much. Like from the first game I ever played, I was immediately hooked. I had never played a sci-fi RPG at all before then, and there's just something about its brand of horror, its sort of sci-fi aesthetic, its sort of slim and elegant rules that just sort of get out of the way when you don't want to worry about them too much, which is how I tend to prefer to run games. I just love it. I don't know. It's a system that focuses on having really good adventures, and that's what sells me on a system. Yeah. I plan to continue making Mothership content. I have a couple other zines and cool stuff in the works. Troika is my other favorite RPG. I contributed to an upcoming publication that I'd like to talk about a little more later, with a Troika adventure, which is going to be my first published Troika adventure, which I'm excited for. But I have some other Troika stuff in the works that I'd love to do. This past year in 2020, I published something for Old School Essentials called A Man on the Road, which is a pamphlet adventure that just takes one single NPC, an encounter with one single NPC, and fleshes that out and makes it more interesting. So it sort of takes something that seems like it could be a one-off, like single line encounter on a random table, but it's actually there's much more to it.
I love that.
Yeah, so I definitely plan to publish and write stuff for more systems, but I'm also focused on Mothership for the moment.
That's awesome. No, I love that. And that's a good transition to the next question that came up from Pandamit, which is, what do you think the future of the OSR market and Mothership is specifically? Like, what do you think we're going to see that going as far as that market in general?
I mean, it looks like it's only growing. Stuff like there's sort of a off OSR sort of grouping of games that I sort of put in a similar category, like Mothership, Troika, and Morkborg I think are all sort of in this sort of post OSR sort of vein, where
New
they're
SR, some people call it, or like it's, in my mind, it's really just like it's old school principles with an indie design. Like, I mean, there's a lot
right.
of what it comes down to.
Yeah, I try not to get too wrapped up around assigning
Language, yeah.
labels or,
Right.
but whatever. All that stuff people seem to be really into, and there's, including mine, there's 6 Mothership zines this Kickstarter, and they're all doing amazingly well. 2 of them just went live today, and I think they funded in like 10 minutes or something. Mothership specifically, they're going to be coming out with their big like 1.0 boxed set with their their updated player's guide, warden's guide, and other stuff. I'm not sure how much I'm supposed to be talking about this. I know a little insider stuff there, but that'll be coming out sooner or later. And I think that's going to be a huge boost to the Mothership community. I personally run a Discord server with a ton of third-party Mothership devs, and we try to support each other and collaborate. We all looked over and helped each other edit and improve our Kickstarter pages. And I think everyone seems to be keep making awesome stuff. And I feel really optimistic about making stuff for games in that sort of area.
Awesome. We have one more question that's a little bit more about Kickstarters themselves, and then we're gonna kind of we got a couple reveals at the end from you, and I've got a couple things I want to chit chat about. The last question is, can you turn the absence of stretch goals into a benefit as a first-time creator by highlighting that you're keeping it simple? Like you mentioned, it's exciting for you as a backer. People are making the opposite choice. Like, I just want to, it's my first time, we're just doing it. Do you think that that's easy to highlight and share in a way that's meaningful to backers?
I've seen people do that. I think I've definitely been put at ease when I see someone write in a Kickstarter like, this is a very simple campaign. We're not doing anything fancy. Here's the book. That's it. Back it or don't.
Right.
And there's definitely a plus side to that. It's really hard for me to say what strategy is best. Not having I don't have a tons of data in front of me. But you can do that. Plenty of Kickstarters do that and are successful, and that's absolutely an option.
Yeah. I think the biggest question for me always comes down to, because actually Phil Reed, who is a prolific designer, he's the first person we interviewed on Prestige Class, basically puts out about a project a month. And the reality is, I'd rather Phil Reed put out a new project every single month than just build out stretch goal content for the 2 or 3 months that it's going to take him to complete it, to get everything out, and not be able to put out as much great content every single time that he does. And so I think as long as people have a good reason to, or a good way to talk about what choice they're making behind stretch goals, or if it keeps your backers excited, that's always going to be the big question. What motivates somebody on a Kickstarter page to say, I want to back this project? That's what creators should be looking for next time. Jeremy says, geez, at me next time. So you did mention at the very beginning that there is a project coming up that you're going to be taking part in. Tell us a little bit more about Postcards from Cable Street.
Yeah. So if anyone watching has ever heard of Distant Whispers, which was a huge collaborative RPG anthology, that I participated in, and Tuesday Night Games helped publish, that we put out in June. We raised to date over $60,000 for bail fund networks in the United States to get people out of jail. So if you like that, later that summer, a bunch of us from Distant Whispers and some others got together and started working on something new. And that thing is coming out very soon. The project is called Postcards from Cable Street. It is a UK-based anti-fascist zine raising money for UK anti-fascist groups. It is being spearheaded by Luke Gearing, who is the author of Gradient Descent from Mothership and Fever Swamp and a bunch of other awesome stuff. And what's makes it a little different from Dissonant Whispers is it has a little more of a unifying aesthetic. This very it's like a black and white sort of old school collage look. It's still being written and laid out and designed and having illustrations from tons of different people, so you still have that cool sort of patchwork feel, but it has a little more of a unified aesthetic, like I said, if you're into that. I wrote a Troika adventure for it. That's the thing I mentioned before. A bunch of other people wrote some really awesome stuff. They are on Twitter.
I just had the Twitter up just a second ago on screen, so people should be able to find it, and we'll drop it down in the tags to this video also later. But it is at cable_from on Twitter.
Yeah, so they're going to be posting a bunch of mock-ups in the run up to its release, so you can get a little sneak peek at how it looks. And I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic.
Awesome. Well, tell us again, if people are just joining us here right at the very end, tell us again one more time, like I said, the link that we created a short link that's right underneath your face for people to be able to easily get to the drain, but give us the elevator pitch for the drain just one more time.
Sure. So the drain is a Mothership zine that I'm currently kickstarting. It is a funnel scenario in the Dungeon Crawl Classics tradition, where each player is running a handful of weak and very susceptible to death characters through a super dangerous scenario with the aim of losing a handful of them along the way and coming out the other side with hopefully at least one character per player that they can then run through a campaign. In my case, my funnel takes place on a giant colony ship called Within Wheels. Players are corporate prisoners who have been drafted into this holy war that is taking place on the ship. So players are going to crawl from one side of the ship all the way to the end through minefields and trenches and corporate soldiers and bioengineered farm animal monsters and stuff like that to get to the end.
Awesome. And it's live on Kickstarter. I know it just passed the $10,000 mark while we were on stream. I backed it. I kept on going back and forth between the $10 level and the $80 level. And then right before we went live, had Ian talk me into the $80 level. It didn't take a lot of convincing. Like I said, I was already going back and forth. By the way, if you're watching, if you're not familiar with what we do, we basically just help support independent tabletop creators. Zine Quest is a huge thing for us. This is actually our first year of creating content for it, but we're doing live streams every day. As a matter of fact, I'm about to take a break for about 45 minutes, then come back live and do our daily Zine Questing feature, which is where I sit down and review, 10-ish different RPGs pages. So if you want to come back in about an hour for that, we'll be featuring a bunch of different cool games. If you have a game you want us to cover because it's live on Kickstarter and you're the creator, or just one that you love, we would love to feature that. We also do short review videos, actual plays. Hopefully, I would love to get Ian to come back and run some of us through the drain at some point in the future once it's a little bit closer to being done. You don't have to commit to that online. You can tell me no later on. And then we also do short polished reviews, interviews, a couple other things. You can find all of that at youtube.com/+1exp. You can find everything we do at plus1exp.com. We also have a zine that is going up next week called Repugnant. It's going to be the world's grossest role-playing game, and it's set on this beautiful world called the Crust that we've created, and I'm super excited about it. It was done in partnership with a good friend of mine, John DeCampos. So check all that stuff out. Check out everything we do at +1exp. But please go check out and back the drain. Jeremy, if they want to find, sorry, Jeremy, I was just looking at Jeremy's name. Ian, if they want to find your blog content, what's the best place to look for that?
My blog is called Uncanny Spheres. You can find it at uncannyspheres.blogspot.com. I am on Twitter at Ian Yusem, my name. Thank you so much for having me on, Tony. This has been a blast.
Oh yeah, it's been absolutely great to get to hear about the project. I also love, like I said, the community development aspect that you shared of like, we were all talking about this and then I decided to do it. More people need to do that in the RPG community. It's how great games get made. And I love the team of people who collaborated on this project and how excited they were in the chat the entire way through. Also too, we've got another great team project we're going to be talking about tonight. It's actually called Tezca Sentai. We're going to do an actual play of it tonight, but it is designed by a couple of Latin American creators, and it is Aztec Power Rangers. And so I am super excited to play that with the creators tonight. So come back if you get a chance to, but please, please, more than anything else, go check out Ian's project, The Drain, right now live on Kickstarter. I'd love to get it up to that $12,000 stretch goal. I'd love to force Ian to have to figure out other stretch goals to create, or just say, I did enough stretch goals, I'm done.
Yeah. Like, it's both my hope and my worst nightmare to have to come up with more.
It always is. It always is. I kept on having to go back through and find more and more and more for ours last year, but it's a fun problem to have until eventually you don't have it anymore. So super excited about the work that you're doing and can't wait to see more of what comes from your work. But until next time, I've still never figured out a good way to close stream, so we're just going to wave at the camera until I end the live stream.